Well, I don't even call it negotiations yet. It's conversation, which is still one up over what it used to be under Biden administration, that two sides are talking. And that's in itself obviously very important. Nobody going to deny that. But before the real negotiations start, in a sense, if they already started, maybe, but we will not know about what is going on there. And it's better to keep it under wraps, considering the fact that there are very many players, small as they are and insignificant as they are, who will try to derail. So, and that is why at this stage, at least publicly, these are conversations, okay? But it's good. It's good. That's good that they're talking. You know, that this is how superpowers should operate. They should talk to each other, okay? They should have dialogue.
Can you understand that the United States wasn't interested, or Russia, they were not interested in having Europe together with Ukraine to be part of this? Because when you look at the nature of, as you've mentioned, this sort of conversation between the two parties, was it necessary to have them at the table?
No, they are insignificant and inconsequential. The only thing which matters in this world is military industrial might. Everything else derives from it, okay? So although you can say they, obverse statement, so to speak, that obviously military industrial might is the first derivative of real economy. None of the European countries represents any kind of the significant military force or significant economy. If you look at the larger, framework of the world economy. And yeah, they may still produce a thing or two there, in Europe. But as the bloc, or let alone separate countries, they are, as I am repeating this ad nauseam, they are not the subject, they are objects. And they have no place behind the table, especially considering its fanatical hatred of Russia, not only of elite, but large parts of the population. So there you go. So they have nothing to do there, and they shouldn't be there.
Is it going to be Witkoff together with Rubio and Waltz again negotiating with the Russians? Because right after the negotiations, the talks, at least they were talking about Keith Kellogg would be again in charge of the negotiation.
No. They said he will be a part. It's not like he's in charge. He cannot be in charge of anything when he's in the presence of actually people like Marco Rubio. We might love whatever we want, but he is the Secretary of the State. By the way, in the chain of command, and in case of he is there. I don't remember. Is he number 5 or something like that? We have what? President, Vice President, the Speaker of the House, I believe, and Defense Secretary, and then Secretary of the State. I don't remember who. And so, and especially when I assume we already have established contacts, I think, between the CIA and SVR, between Mr. Ratcliffe and Narishkin. So it's kind of the work on several directions, if you wish. So, and Kellogg, he decides nothing there.
Because it's a huge work when you look at the scale of what has happened. Not just the political parties should meet each other, the intelligence, the military industrial complex, they have to communicate to each other. If they were to bring Europe together with Ukraine into these sort of talks, that would be impossible. Even that wasn't practical at this phase of the.
It's not just practical. Trump administration and the way it's shaping right now. I'm not saying that this is 100% guarantee, considering the very flamboyant nature and narcissistic nature of Trump. But he understands evidently that the United States has to be extricated from this conundrum for two reasons. He still thinks that he needs resources, however, not very large, largely exaggerated. of the United States for the, well, not real war, but also the real war with China. And secondly, he doesn't want to hold the back of what is already happened, which is the humiliating defeat of NATO. And simple as that. And doing this, he, as I stated when he got elected, and when he took the oath and took the Oval Office, that he has very little time to make, not sure, to indicate clearly if he wants this war to be his war, which will be a humiliating catastrophe for his administration and the United States, which already happened, or he wants to detach himself, which he has the chance, because he was not the guy who really pushed this whole agenda. In fact, he was basically a victim in some sense. And he evidently made his choice, which is good. And from what is stated both by American and Russian side, and it's that the discussion or conversation, if you wish, is beyond the Ukraine conflict. It is in the larger, geopolitical framework of whatever these two sides, because there are only three superpowers. So let's face it, there are only three superpowers: military, industrial, and economic. This is militarily, it's Russia and United States, despite the United States obviously not being what they thought they were in terms of military power and in terms of economic power. But in the third is China, which is primarily economic power. So how these three arrange things between each other, and the United States, of course, will be trying to detach, so to speak, ply Russia away from China, or China from Russia. So it's still between these three, how the world will be settled in the larger sense. And then, of course, then those details come into play, how the regional players begin to settle things between each other, how it will proceed from there. So that's the reality of it, and nothing could be done about it. Anybody who comes up here with all this BS about United Nations, and no, I mean, I agree with, obviously I cannot disagree with him, Mr. Lavrov, who is a heaviest weight in world diplomacy, when he says that foundation for the new world structure has to be obviously charter of the United Nations as organization is utterly corrupt and has to be disbanded. But the charter could be used for something new in principle, and especially with basically recognizing that, for example, France, United Kingdom, or even Germany, they're not even in the same economic and military weight as, let's say, obviously India. No matter what you say about India, it's a gigantic economy and gigantic population. You have now Indonesia, the largest Muslim country. So you have the complete shift in the geopolitical sense, and you have Brazil, which economically dwarfs practically, in critical components, such places as Germany or even France, for example. So yeah. It's different, so to speak, spread, if you wish, and it's different balance of power, which is already here. It's not, it's a fait accompli, and we have to live with it. So there you go. And that's how it should go. There should be obviously used the United Nations Charter and those statements, about all kinds of positive things about, but we have to be realistic. We are into a completely new territory. It already happened, and now it is up to Russia and United States to figure it out, how to deal with this, and then see what China's response will be, and then we kind of go and play from there. Yes, even administration, people from Trump administration, they say that, yeah, we don't want war with China, which I agree, yeah, you don't. But they will be playing the Cold War with China, obviously, the moving forces, whatever the forces they have to, posturing, as it was in the Cold War 1.0, essentially. So, but Europe is done. It's a peninsula of the gigantic Eurasian landmass, and it's basically out of the game.
If we if we look at the behavior of the Donald Trump administration, they don't care about it seems that they're not interested in Europe right now. But with this sort of attitude on their part toward Russia, what is the bigger picture, Andrei? How do they see Russia in the bigger picture that they're having in their mind? I'm talking about Donald Trump and his administration. And how's that going to influence the relationship between the three superpowers, as you've mentioned, Russia, China, and the United States?
Well, United States now, it faced, I think so, they beginning to face at least. Some people already in Pentagon or CIA already faced it, the fact that militarily Russia is by far the most powerful nation on the globe. And especially technologically, it is so advanced. The United States sometimes lags not just by years, but generation or two in weapon systems and and means of delivery, things of this nature. So it is a reality. You have to live with that. So, and those people, when they recognize this, then that's when the game starts. Obviously, militarily, in terms of the arms control, United States literally has almost nothing to bring on the table. Such a START treaty. Okay, I mean, I spoke on that matter and wrote books on that matter for so long, such a long time now. But in terms of relations like international order, let's say, okay. And of course, which has to be stated openly, spheres of influence, period. It is what it is. It always was like that. Anybody who believes in this, situation that, oh my God, every single little entity should have the equal voice. No, it never worked like this. It is how big you are, So in other matter, you don't want to be a bully. You want to be a real deal. And so how Russia, China, and United States settle the issue of spheres of influence, that's how it will work out for the rest of the world. And of course, there are more complex, so to speak, structures, security structures. For example, the rivalry between India, of course, and China, with India, getting ready to control the Indian Ocean and shipping lanes of communications there. They do have the capability and will have it more the more they develop technologically to do so. So it's a complex world, but it is not the world of the two superpowers, just, it is three now, which already actually it's good in terms of stability. It's much easier to sit on the chair, which with the three, what do you call them? Yeah. So 3 points or of the contact with the floor, then you have the two. That's obvious, stability increases in this respect, but it changes, of course, the dynamics dramatically, and it changes it to such a degree that we have to view, especially Europe, as the combined West. When we view Europe as the combined West, as it's over. For 500 years, it shaped the world. We live in this world which was shaped by Western civilization. We cannot deny it. In fact, love living in this world, in a sense, when I am privy to benefits of this world, in a sense of the knowledge, art, culture, and things like that. Nobody says that it was all bad. I am categorically against people who come up and say, "Oh yeah, you pay me, some kind of, you know what I'm talking about." And but no, the people of Europe who are there today, they have nothing to do essentially from what was their traditional consensus in terms of taking the colonies, exploiting them, and of course committing incredible atrocities such as Great Britain committed against Indian people, including all those horrendous famines and the mess they left. So, but that time is over. When you begin to look at the scientific and economic development, let's say again, Russia and China, there are plans now to get the station on the moon, the permanent station on the moon. Russians already are near the developing, well, they already developed the ion engine, which is capable of accelerating to 100 kilometers per second, and the nuclear-driven engine, which is pretty much is getting ready in the, so to speak, in the actual, made out of the metal and all other things, material thing. It's going to accelerate us to 400, 500 kilometers per second. And we are on the verge of this, and you look attentively in this, and like, yeah, Europe is, it still has obviously some influence. It still produces things, as I many times say, that Airbus are excellent planes. I love flying Airbuses. It's an outstanding company. But the rest of it, militarily, they are next to zero. Technologically, in terms of military industrial capabilities, they are backward. Let's put it this way. And the United States obviously wants Europe to be the recipient of, American weapons to make profit for American companies. As simple as that. And this is already happening. Okay. So there you go. And what can I say? It's complex dynamics. Believe me. This is the dynamics which guarantees that while we're alive, we will have the job of talking like we're doing right now. But the point is, it's not Western world anymore. It is much more complex, much more diverse. And of course, new alliances, new balances and checks and balances are emerging. And that's it. The world as we knew it is no more. It's not there.
Andrei, what the difference between the United States under Donald Trump and Europe today is the difference between two sort of strategies. Donald Trump, since he took power, he's not interested in Ukraine because it doesn't benefit the United States.
No.
In his eye, it doesn't. Nothing good. The first question I would believe that in the mind of Donald Trump would be, what's in it for me?
Well, absolutely.
Nothing.
He is
nothing.
Yeah. He is, in this respect, a very pragmatic man in a sense that he loves this, thing, throws this term around like deal and no deal and things like that. It's all obviously garbage, but he is a very pragmatic man. And I know for a fact that already in his first term, granted, he was sabotaged and he behaved himself, I wouldn't expect for the man who took the bullet into the ear, and behaved himself like a real man, he should have behaved differently at that time. But already in 2018, his administration issued this report about a catastrophic situation with the industrial base in the United States. You can look it up. It's out there, and especially preserving the military-industrial base, which is the critical element of America's economic might. And already the numbers and trends there were devastating. We were just absolutely. So that means he already knew then that there should be something how to save the country. United States is in the horrendous debt. And it is only the fact that for now, dollar still remains significant. It's a larger portion, but it's not the only one part of the international account setting of the accounts financially. The hard currency and reserve currency, if we call it. But Bretton Woods is also evaporating very fast. So he understands that. That is why he's talking about that. Oh, yeah, BRICS needs to be broken up. No, BRICS is not going to be broken up. But, he knows that, for example, Russia and China, Russia and India, they already bypassed US dollar, and just do trade. And they don't care about if there is a SWIFT or whatever. And nothing he can do about this militarily. So what's left? One of the strategies is, apart from the fact that these were Europeans, much of their elites being, honed, brought up, paid for by Democratic National Committee and this, fraudulent financial instruments, which is essentially money laundering through U.S. aid and all kind AID, and all kinds of other means of financing those freaks, which are, let's face it, Europeans, their elites, they are freaks. And so obviously those people hate Trump. They hate him. Plus, being stupid, badly educated, having no real life experiences, they bet their farm, especially British, on there that, somehow Ukraine, with the help of NATO, can crush Russians. Well, guess what? Now, can you imagine how they're hurting? Because suddenly, they not only they have nothing, they are now almost completely enslaved by United States, which is good. I don't care. I'm American in a sense. I am your citizen. I need to eat too. So what's wrong with that? Yeah, but this is the dyadic relations now that such that United States, as Vladimir Putin correctly stated, is a master. Those chihuahuas will run to the leg of the master and wiggle their tails, and they will be told what to do and how to do it. And the task of Europe now is to die to provide United States, of which I wrote for 10 years, to provide United States with some chance of saving the country from this financial and economic calamity, which was basically imposed on the United States by all those administrations, starting from Clinton administration, and which was fleecing, essentially corrupting and stealing from American people by means of the globalism, by means of the essentially imperialism. And now what you have Europe. It is still a little bit solvent. It is solvent, but they are getting down. So while they are going down, you need to create such system that you shove down their throats of American industrial output, be them garbage such as F-35 or what have you, but there are other things which America still produces, and that's the market. Classic case of imperialism. Europe, at this moment, is becoming the colony. It always was sort of, but it's becoming the colony of the United States with all things which, which come with the territory of being, metropoly handling the colony. It will be a softer, smarter type of colonialism, but that's what Europe is now. And that's where it will remain. Simple as that, So in this case, as many people still believe that Russians somehow wait for Europe to lift sanctions and come to Russia. No. So just to give you an example, now Coca-Cola suddenly wants to come back to Russia. Okay. Well, Russian, soda drinks producers saying, no way, we don't want them here. And they produce all kinds of colas, Dobra Cola and all that, if you look attentively at Russian supermarkets. And they say, no, we're going to fight, So, and this is just one. Now, suddenly South Korea wants to, come back obviously with Hyundai and, all kinds of Kias. And so Russians are looking at it like, you know what, you behaved like cowards, and you were manipulated from leaving Russia. So now returning to Russian market is much harder. But Europe, which is absolutely poor in terms of any kind of the significant resources, they still have some, but most of it is just, puny, compared to, for example, what Russia sits on, which is about the third of the all world's resources ranging from the rare earth to oil and gas and things like that. They want Russian energy back, but Russians are not giving it back. Even when such alcoholic like Borrell admits that, we lived that well in Europe because of the Soviet and Russian, energy. No more. Only market price if you want to. If you don't, bye-bye. So nobody will be making any favors to Europe. Russians are done with Europe. Russians are done with Europeans. Russia is not a European country in a sense as they understand this, those perverts in Paris or these morons from London. Russia is not Western European country as she tried to be for 300 years. This this phase of Russian history is over. Russia is done. And if they want to some, favors, let them come in and let them be another competitor among many others. There will be no favors or privileges towards them. And that was their choice. They made it.
Europe is facing with some critical conditions right now. With the energy, as you mentioned, natural resources are not that much in Europe, and the industry, Germany, the foundation of the industry in Europe is just the companies are moving out from Germany,
Yeah.
going to other countries, which is huge. I don't know why. And at the same time, Andrei, you see the decision makers in Europe are not Germans. This
No.
is the problem.
Well, I mean, sort of, but we have to consider the fact that practically all political establishment of Germany is utterly corrupt and utterly, they hate Russians. Okay, they hate Russian guns. So they learned nothing, absolutely nothing from the World War II. And essentially the magnanimity of Russians, who in the end, it was Soviet Union which allowed Germany, to unify. And while Eastern Germans obviously have their own opinion now about that, but it was the moment of time, emotional high from this BS, which was called perestroika, which Gorbachev was selling country to the left and to the right. But the point is, they cannot understand that. They do not understand things. They, as I already stated, all this AFD, Alternative for Germany, and all those, puppets like Sarah Wagenknecht, it is all reaction to the outside stimuli, economic stimuli. The only thing they want to hate Russia, but they want Russian privileges economically. Simple as that. And this is not only Germany. Most of them are. Russians don't want that. So, and it will require, so even Alternative for Germany, as they come up and say, yeah, we need to restore relations with Russia and things like that, and in order to get Russian energy. No. This is not how it works anymore. Times changed, so, and circumstances changed. And while we say that, that wasn't a decision of Germany, let's remember the Willy Brandt and even Helmut Schmidt, himself a former, Wehrmacht officer, no less, that the chancellor, they still were able to produce Ostpolitik. They still have been able to basically act, independently on in many respects of the economic life of the Western Germany. Now, look at them, compare them to Willy Brandt or Helmut Schmidt, and compare this to this moron Scholz or his stupid, Bimbo, Baerbock, or Mr. whatever Habeck. These are morons, I'm sorry. And Germans voted for them. You think so then when the Christian Democratic Union will come into power, they're freaking, half of them are Nazis, okay? And I mean, literally, they still have, like all of them, oh, my uncle or my grandfather fought, oh, he was SS. Sorry, guys, we rethought all those. They learned absolutely nothing. And so the only thing they are reacting to is not the moral or ethical issue of German tanks now burning in Kursk. The only thing they care about is economic stimuli, and this is what usually works, for the most of civilization. And yeah, it's not only classic Marxism. It was before Marxist, ideology. It was during Adam Smith, times when writing on the nature of the accumulation of, the wealth of the nations. And people primarily react to economic stimuli. And now when Germans felt the same as French, that they live in crap holes, you look at London, you look at Paris, you look at Berlin, and they suddenly their women are being raped, they've been beaten and things like that. Well, too late, guys. Now they understand they will be poor. Many of them are already poor. But you know what? If not for the German tanks in Kursk, and that could have been somewhat different. Now there's no trust. Russia was betrayed by Europe, and you cannot forgive this. And that will always be the case. And that is why I am constantly on record saying that special military operations are the final salvos of the World War II. We're wrapping up this century, essentially, from the First World War II, and then which organically flowed, floated into the World War II, and now with the special military operation, it is Europe's fault. Europe was the originator of the two most destructive wars in history. It was there in Europe where it all came from. And now you see yourself the final chapter written, and Europe has to be, the European Union should be broken up. And those guys have to, basically, live by their own, whatever the means they have. If they don't have means, well, too bad. Earn money honestly, and, and I will look at how France or Germany will fare, not well. We know that.
Andrei, in reaction to what has happened in Saudi Arabia, we had a summit in Paris managed by Emmanuel Macron. And it seems that there would be a second summit inviting other countries. How do we know what the Europeans in this summit are really seeking for? What is the main objective? What do they want from negotiation? What do they want from any sort of political settlement in Ukraine? Is that understandable?
No, I mean, it's all, pardon my French, BS. I mean, Macron tries to present France, Chihuahua, militarily and economically. Even Airbus, it's international consortium, essentially. So it's not like France alone does this. They are delusional. Macron and French are, they're perversion central, so these are not normal people. Make no mistake. These are not. Emmanuel Macron is their, bank teller boy. He's basically, caretaker for Rothschild family, and he's not even hiding it. French elected him. Well, enjoy. And so, by the point is, these are grasping at the straw. Today, this guy, this pathetic clown, France, enjoy your president. He is laughed at from all quarters, but hey, they elected him twice, So, and he says, oh, no, we're not going to be sending troops again. He changes his opinion like several times a day. That tells you everything, that how desperate they are. So you have these clowns. They will get, as the first summit, when they evidently had the quarrel there, they were calling each other names. So that's what Europe will be. They will start a war again, but between each other. They always did. That's always. This time, however, they cannot go east to resolve their, contradictions, political contradiction, because Russia will turn them into their parking lot, very fast. It doesn't take much, 15 minutes, and that will be over. In fact, this even Trump admitted, so when he talked about Ukrainian cities, Russians can kill them all. You can actually turn Paris into the parking lot without nuclear weapons. There will be a single HypersonicMissile missile will be enough to turn the center of the Paris the way it belongs, so the dumpster, So, and that's exactly what is happening. People, and they are scared, crapless, literally. They are soiling their pants. And so they try to present some kind of the unified front, but they will be left essentially to their own devices under the supervision of the United States, in a sense that they will be used as the market, not as a producer, as the market, So, and again, I understand, for example, like, oh yeah, those governments will be, driven off soon, possible. But the problem here is they're not going to be driven out due to moral, ethical question of the atrocities the West committed against Russian people. No. They don't care about 1 million plus Ukrainian men killed because of their policies. No, most of them will react there not for the moral, ethical reasons. They will react because they will face the reality of going hungry and losing their was so beloved standard of living. They are already losing it. This is the only driver behind all those, things in Europe. Most of Europeans, not all, but most, they never learned a thing. Okay, so, and that's what is going to happen to them. And I'm constantly being accused, for example, like, oh, you hate Europeans. I hate European elites for sure, but I'm European man. I'm man of European culture. I love European culture. From art, I mean, the old things of this nature. I love Pink Floyd, despite the fact that Keir Starmer is a cretin. As most of them, they, incest and pedophile central in London. So Beatles, things like that. But the point is that has nothing to do with moral obligation and moral status of peoples of Europe. It has everything to do with the fact that they are becoming poor, and they will become poor. This is not because I want to say this for my, personal delight, but because we are looking at a completely new, geopolitical situation and economy. We live in the advanced economies which require enormous amount of energy. Europe doesn't have any.
Andrei, here is what Starmer said about his trip to Washington. And he wants to talk with Donald Trump. Here is what he said.
We'll have to do more. The issue of burden sharing is not new, but it is now pressing. And Europeans will have to step up, both in terms of spending and the capabilities that we provide. On Ukraine, we're at the very early stage of the process. Europe must play its role. And I'm prepared to consider committing British forces on the ground alongside others if there is a lasting peace agreement. But there must be a US backstop, because a US security guarantee is the only way to effectively deter Russia from attacking Ukraine again. So I will go to Washington next week to meet President Trump.
Andrei, and here is the answer, here is the response from the Russian ambassador to the UK.
Well, I have read today's morning newspapers. I find that the British establishment is now in a state of shock and nervousness of what has happened. But what has happened, in fact, in reality, this is a more understanding from the American side of what we are doing, why we are doing, and what should be the outcome of it. Of course, we are not going to accept British troops on the Ukrainian soil. I have a message for the British government that it should actually understand the real situation as soon as possible, and not to trying to prolong sufferings in Ukraine, because since for the British government it's much more important not to provide more weapons, but to think how to restore Ukraine after what has happened.
Do they really want to understand what the Russian ambassador to the United Kingdom, to the British government, is talking about, or they want to learn it from Donald Trump? I don't know, the software.
Donald Trump will tell them pretty much the same. Plus, Mr. Donald Trump has a lot of scores to settle with British establishment, especially starting from the Steele's dossier, this rogue and moron MI6 asset, which is MI6 loves to promote itself as the spy central. In reality, they are pathetic. I mean, they are good only at killing Skripal's cats or killing Skripals. That's what they are good at. They're killing children. That's false flags. That's what they do. United Kingdom is already reduced to the terrorist state essentially, and so it doesn't matter who they are there. As I already stated, they're political elite of British political elite. And it's degenerate, basically, as when you look attentively at their tabloids, and those people have no honor, they have nothing, integrity doesn't exist there. So what they do now, they hear this cretin Starmer will come to Washington, and he will be stated, to his face, probably even in a much rougher form than what a polite Russian ambassador to London states. And I was, for a long time, actually advocate of breaking their diplomatic relations with these creeps. This is nothing against British people. I understand England cannot change what is basically now the totalitarian state, and they are a totalitarian state. So, and let him go to Washington. But the point is, Britain, in the larger scheme of things, is next to zero. Their military is pathetic. They don't have actually competent military people there. Kursk, 63,000 killed of Ukrainian troops. That's British plan. That's how they fight, because they never fought real war, except for when it, of course, Red Army already did the main, heavy lifting in the obviously on the Eastern Front. That's the only thing they know. They are not even serious power. Well, just to give you example, divide 74 by 4. Russian, oh good lord, Russians produce 18.5 times more steel than British produce. That tells you something, right? So that's pretty much the real balance of power in terms of economy, and their military is pathetic. Their capabilities, they are virtually non-existent. So if he wants to put troops, yeah, I heard this story about peacekeepers, and we support them with aviation. They are being laughed at in Moscow. They are nobodies. They have to kind of accept this reality and live in accordance to their means, which are minuscule. And by the way, French got kicked out of yet another Sahel territory today, Sahel territory. So evidently, the French army shows now how tough they are, how they are ready to fight Russians. So there you go. What can I say? I mean, it's pathetic, but they were working towards it for the last 100 years.
Andrei, for Ukraine to be part of the political settlement, do they really, in your opinion, is Russia accepting Zelensky, or there has to be some sort of presidential election in Ukraine and has an official president to be part of, I don't know, a signature to the settlement in Ukraine? Because if we assume that Zelensky is in power, they're not going to have any sort of presidential election, and Zelensky signs the settlement. Who's Zelensky?
Well, he's nobody. Mr. Lavrov already stated. Everybody states, that. No, they need to hold the elections. Mr. Trump says this now. Obviously, Zelensky cannot hold the elections because he will lose catastrophically. So he will continue to turn the whole country into Gestapo territory, which they were doing from the get-go with the help of British and Americans and Germans. Germans know a lot about Gestapo. So, and he will continue to do that, but he is essentially a dead man walking. He is guarded by SAS, I think. Well, SAS is good enough to off him if the time comes. But whatever British will be doing, they will be doing out of their convoluted, perverted logic, or rather lack thereof. But the point is, nobody will be talking to him. And that is why special military operation continues today, and it will continue until either Zelensky is killed and some reshuffling happens in Ukraine, or his regime is basically, sabotaged and coup d'etat, by some other internal forces, which still will be criminals, but at least they will understand that they need to, remain in the control of some small territory. As you know, probably, Russian troops are already in the territory of the Sumy region. They are in Kharkov region. And so, yeah, there is a lot of movement. And that tells you some other things about the real situation in the battlefield, which only matters for everything what is happening right now geopolitically on this global scale. And, so what can I say? Zelensky is not going to be accepted as anybody. He is a war criminal. Russians would love to have him alive. But British probably, because they will need to cover their tracks of terrorism, atrocities. They're really good at atrocities, British. So they will love him, to cover the tracks pretty much, because if he is somehow captured, but oh my God, he'll be singing like a bird, man. And so what can I say? Well, we'll have to wait and see anyway. Do
you see Poroshenko getting back to power, if in case of
I don't know.
Because
This alcoholic, he promised to that Russian children will be sitting in the cellars, in basements, hiding from, bombardment. He's a war criminal himself. So, and he's an alcoholic. He's a basically, how to say it, lower of the lowest. So, but yeah, if he needs to be some kind of the, front to just told where to sign, who knows, maybe.
or maybe Zaluzhny. I don't know which one would be better for.
I don't know. I am not specialist in the different sorts of the fecal matter, so it's all fecal matter, no matter what, So it's, whatever they do. Yeah, Zaluzhny, Poroshenko, who cares,
Yeah. And Andrei, the situation on the battlefield right now, you've mentioned a little bit about that, but are they reducing the drafting age from 25 to 16, or they didn't do this yet?
They're talking about it. But for Zelensky, it could be also the death trap, because obviously even Ukrainian population begins to sober up a little bit, except for the fanatics. Fanatics are always fanatics. And yeah, it is one thing to send your 30-year-old guy who is fairly mature, and totally another to send the kid, essentially, who will be killed, probably will never see even Russian storm groups, and God bless their soul if they encounter Russian stormtroopers. Nobody wants to face them, in the world, believe me, I know. And so, I don't know, he might start this, and then maybe in the end, some kind of uprising. But, what can I say? It's a totalitarian, it's literally Gestapo state. Everybody snitches on each other, So it's basically one snitch state. So, and they wanted it, honestly. They say that they wanted to, vote for peace. No, they wanted to vote for peace with the basically killing off anybody in the eastern Ukraine, which is now part of Russia, on those oblasts. Then, yeah, it's Ukrainian perverted way of saying, yeah, we're peaceful people, but let's kill those people first, That's how people sometimes misinterpret that. So, and in this case, who knows? There was very little resistance anyway.
And Donald Trump was talking about the approval rating of Zelensky to be at 4%.
Yeah.
And and the mainstream media in the West was talking about 57%, which came from a Kiev Institute of Sociology.
Yeah.
It seems that this institution received fund from USAID, NED, and Soros Foundation. It's all related and connected to Zelensky to make new.
Western media are pretty much a collection of whores. Okay, they are literally whores. They will sell themselves. They will sell their families. They have no honor. Those people, I'm not really exaggerating. If you are in the same room with some correspondent from CNN or Washington Post, have a good course of antibiotics, not to be infected with. Those people are vile. They're herpes. They are literally subhumans. And I can obviously quote you Hunter Thompson, what is the profession of journalism is, which he calls is not neither profession nor craft. So, but the point is, these people will just, again, sell their souls, and they already sold. That is why there is no hope for the mainstream media in the West. They are tabloids, and basically, they should go to porn, or something like that. That's their level, all of them. So